call this regular council meeting of February 10th to order. Looking for a motion to approve the agenda with any additions. Councillor Orlando, Councillor Sauls. All those in favor? Motion is carried. I would like to have a motion to adopt the minutes of the public hearing. What date? January 27th. Need a motion for adopt those public hearing minutes. Councillor Sauls, Councillor Orlando. All those in favor? Motion's carried. And the regular council minutes of January 27th. Councillor Nixon and Councillor Orlando. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. Just a couple of very quick announcements. I wanted to publicly thank the Grizzlies for inviting council to their last hockey game. It was an exciting affair that the Grizzlies won 8-6. I'm not sure. I know they're a little bit closer to making the playoffs, and I know that Councillor Brothers was extremely happy to be at the game and really enjoyed it. She's asked me for time off council that she can travel with the team on the bus to their out-of-town games, and I tell her that's not possible. So she has to attend council meetings from now on. The other thing I would like to mention is that the city almost a year ago put out to the public that if anybody had any outstanding building permits, that there was a moratorium on charging extra for those building permits. So I just wanted to, through the media, let the public know that May 1st, that's probably going to be coming to an end. And I know that when this started, there was 350 building permits that were outstanding. 236 of them have been dealt with, which I think is a very good record. There's still a few that are outstanding, and you've got till May 1st. And if you aren't sure if you have a building permit outstanding, you can contact City Hall and they will tell you. But May 1st, that's probably coming to an end, and I think it's a real good approach that the city's taken on cleaning up some of these outstanding building permits. We have two delegations today. The first is our Member of Parliament, Mr. David Wilks. Mr. Wilks, would you mind coming to the podium? And the floor is yours. Just sit there, you can't vote and stuff, though, you know.
Fun part. Thank you very much for having me here today. First of all, I'd like to congratulate yourself and all members of the council for the election back in October. It's the first time I've been here since then. And I look forward to working with you next year and hopefully beyond 2015. And we'll see as the election is called for October 19th this coming year. The reason I'm here today is with regards to the Build Canada Fund, and find out the priorities for the city of Revelstoke so that we can move forward with those and see what we can do to purchase the money.
Nice.
So as you're aware, in the Build Canada Fund, there are three different components. One is the national infrastructure component, which is merit-based, and there's the provincial territorial infrastructure component, which is a $10 billion per capita coordinated by the provincial government. And that's split into two components, which is the national regional projects and the small communities funds, which is basically what you would fall under. We're looking at that is broken into a 30-30-30 or 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 payments. So I bring it back to you with regards to what your priorities are for your town, and then I can bring you up to date on a couple of things that are happening in our province.
Great. Well, what we've done is we've gone through a process. We have an area of town called Big Eddy. They have an issue with the water. We just finished doing a study that just came to council, and Interior Health has put Big Eddy Water on a quality advisory, not a boil water, quality advisory. But the second part of that is the quantity of water that is available, and which would then create the pressure for fire hydrants and things like that. So small issue with quality, easily to fix, and a bigger issue with quantity and pressure. So we've put an application in. Our study shows it's going to be about a $5.7 million for the complete overhaul. So this council has decided that that is the #1 infrastructure priority for the community, and has put in that application. We're looking forward to hearing the good news on our application, because as everybody knows, water is the #1 issue. It's the #1 quality of life issue, and no different here. And that's, like I said, that's the only item that we've put in.
Okay. Just to give you some understanding of where we're at with this, tomorrow I meet with, Thursday I meet with Golden, which is the last community to meet with in the constituency. As you're aware, this constituency is changing in October to become larger, and will include the towns of Selmo and Caswell and the city of Nelson, which will bring the constituency up to just shy of 109,000 people, and increase the geography by a significant amount as well. So I've taken that into account when looking at all of the applications that have come forward, and I'd like to provide you with some understanding of what I'm looking at and what we're looking at in this constituency. From Cranbrook, their application is for the 2nd Street Corridor Redevelopment Project at $13 million. This isn't all in, so divided by a third, figure out what the third would be. Yours is 5.7 all in. Creston, combined with the RDCK, is looking at an Arrow Creek water main, which is $8 million. Invermere is looking at a multi-use center. They've been told they can't apply to that because it's recreational and it doesn't fit in, so they're going to rejig their application to a water project at $1.5 million. Salmo is looking at a reservoir at 1.5. Nelson at Hall Street Revite project at $4 million. Kimberley wastewater treatment plant, $30 million. Probably not going to happen. Elford is looking at one of two applications, a water distribution system at $1 to $2 million, and an Alpine Lake rehabilitation at $1 to $2 million. Sparwood is looking at an intersection and water infrastructure upgrade at Highway 3 and 43 at a total of $3 million. Fernie is looking at a James White well at $2.5 million. Yourself at 5.7, and we'll see what Golden has to say. And that doesn't include the RDEK that is allowed to put in a second application. They can put 2 in. Same with the RDCK, and the same with the CSRD. They can put 2 in each. I know that one for the RDCK is combined with Creston. So I will do my best to move these forward. What I suggest, and I told all of the communities, is that staff move forward with their applications, that you give us knowledge of what they are so we can follow them through the system, so that there's a hiccup, we go from there. And I will also prioritize what I believe needs to be done in the constituency as well.
Okay. Did I already notice there's a little red star by our name on your sheet? Is that what I noticed already?
Well, depends.
Okay. And just so you know, is that what we're doing is we're putting in the application, and the second part of that is after hopefully we are successful, then we're going to go through a public process, meet with the residents in the Big Eddy, explain to them exactly what is being proposed, what their portion of the costs are, and making sure that they are 100% on side. And I'm hoping that they will be, but that's the process that we're going to be going through. I think the bill candidate has a 10-year time frame on it.
Correct.
Yeah.
The deadline for application for this round,
February 18th.
February 18th, so next week.
So we're on it.
Perfect.
We got to, Matt, keep going with that red star so that we make sure that we're falling into place.
There you go. I have nothing else to provide to you unless you want. I just open to any questions the council may have. I can certainly speak to a number of the recent Supreme Court decisions that have caused some concern for the federal government in remedying Bedford, Canada versus Bedford. And also on Friday, the Supreme Court decision on assisted suicide that will be of interest to a lot of Canadians. I can talk about veterans. Your call, you're the boss.
No, thank you. Councillor Brothers.
Just one question. In terms of the constituency, is there a quota, or could we all be successful in our applications?
Could all be successful. But the challenge, of course, is that it's a $1 billion fund. And, $1 billion doesn't go too far when you consider all of the communities that are applied. And a small community is defined as a community under 100,000. So in British Columbia, that includes every community outside of the Lower Mainland, every community, including Kelowna, Prince George, and Kamloops.
Councillor Nixon.
Yes, Mr. Wilks, before you were a member of Parliament in Ottawa, you were a very effective mayor, and I remember you telling the previous council about how important it is to build your resiliency and reserves. And I think people find it really hard when I tell them that pretty much you guys have 3% tax rate
In Sparwood?
In Sparwood.
Yeah.
And people need to hear that.
It's, well, I can only say that, and to digress a bit, Your Worship, into municipal politics from my previous career, I can say that any community, as you well know, is much more healthy the stronger their reserve funds are. There are communities around this province that struggle, and as a result of that, they have a difficult time trying to apply for grants and for projects that come forward because they don't have the 1/3, and then they have to go borrow, and that comes with a price tag as well.
Exactly.
Thank you.
And just for council's information, Mr. Wilks and I have spent lots of time together talking about Trans-Canada Highway.
And if I may,
Yes, absolutely.
it's my #1 priority, environment in the whole constituency. It's a challenge because what I've done this year is I refocused it a little bit because last year, although I was successful in getting some money, I got $50 million for both Glacier and Mount Revelstoke. So Mount Revelstoke was resurfaced, and there were 3 bridges that were upgraded in Glacier, and we've also got the money committed to lighting the tunnels on the east side. So I'm a little disappointed that the lighting wasn't done this year, but I will talk to Parks tomorrow and see where they're at with that and go from there. My ask this year to the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance was relatively unique, $5 billion, because that's what it'll take. And that cost, so that everyone knows, is the cost just to do 20 of the Trans-Canada Highway through the national parks, not including any other provincial portion of the highway. So just the national parks. So Yoho's at around roughly $1 billion, $1.5 billion. Glacier's the expensive one at about 2.5, and then Mount Revelstoke's the least of all of them, around 800 to 900 million in 2012 dollars.
Yeah.
So, but what I have impressed upon the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance is that every year we wait, it just costs. So at some point in time, we need to move forward and have a plan where we just keep moving forward.
Which is what our goal is.
Which is my goal.
Councillor London.
Yeah, I just wanted to put a good word in for our water application. Linda's sat in the previous council and they laid the foundation for this during our election this year. Most candidates, successful and not successful, identified the Big Eddy water system is a big priority and #1 issue for the community. That's the majority of the candidates. I think staff's done a lot of good work and we paid attention to the criteria and have been realistic on the ask. So we're really, I think the community's behind this one. And as the mayor said, there's a democratic process built into this as we move forward, but we're really excited to see how that turns out. Excellent. Yeah.
We'll fix the water first and then we'll fix the highway.
Perfect.
Right after.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
Thank you for coming, David. Good to see you. Our second delegation is Revelstoke Bearware. Sue.
Good afternoon, Your Worship, councillors, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sue Davies and I'm the Community Coordinator for Revelstoke Bear Aware. Today I'm going to present our annual report for 2014. Now, because some of you are new faces here, I thought I'd give you a quick history of the Bear Aware situation in Revelstoke. Back in 1994, the garbage dump was a place where bears went to eat food, and it was electric fenced in 1994, preventing the bears from going in. As a result, bears turned up in town looking for food, and many bears that year were destroyed because of becoming conditioned eating human food and becoming a safety concern. So the Bear Management Committee was formed, and they actually created the Bear Aware program in 1996. The program consists of a public education and active management initiatives and Bear Aware public policies. Our mission is to reduce the levels of human-bear conflict in Revelstoke and the surrounding area. And the program has been very successful. It's reduced the average mortality of bears per year from 27 to 7. So you can see this is a graphic of bear management actions since 1986. The blue bars there represent black bears that have been destroyed, the red bars are grizzly bears that have been destroyed, and the green bars are bears that have been relocated. And you can see here in 1996, which is when the program began, a pretty graphic example of just how effective the program has been. So moving on to bear activity in 2014. 2014 was an exceptionally busy year for bear sightings. Reports concern mostly black bears, with only 3 reports regarding grizzlies. You can see that the number of reported sightings is quite variable over the last 10 years, but last year was still an exceptionally high year. It wasn't just the number of sightings that was exceptional, there were more instances of property damage, bears entering houses, and also bear aggression than in a typical year. And there was a correspondingly higher number of bears that were destroyed. The CO service destroyed 9 bears and relocated 2, and a resident destroyed one further bear after it broke into a house. This is a typical of the damage that we were seeing last year. That damage was actually a shed under somebody's deck, and the garbage was stored in there, and bears just literally ripped the door off and went in and had a feed. So what are the reasons for this high activity that we saw last year? Possibly there was a partial failure of the huckleberry crop in the lower elevations of the valley. There was also very abundant cherries in town at about the same time, so the wild food gap was filled in by food that was in town. The 2 previous seasons had been very mild and very fruitful, so bears possibly had higher cub survival or higher adult survival even. And over the last few years, we've had very few bears that have been destroyed in town, so we've got more bears that have had time to become conditioned to humans. And the reality was that it was probably a combination of all of the above. Seeing bears in town was a very regular sight in Revelstoke last year. These 2 are sitting on somebody's front lawn after having had a lunch of plums. So what was attracting bears to our town last year? This chart shows the type of attractants reported. The large blue section shows garbage, the large red section shows fruit, so you can see that those 2 are the main attractants. But also almost every other known attractant was reported in 2014, with the exception of beehives, which to my knowledge are all either electric fenced or on rooftops. Bears also attacked 4 chicken coops over the season. Of those chicken coops that were attacked, bears killed chickens at 2 of them, and 2 other occasions they only fed on the chicken food. There was another instance of a bear being attracted to a chicken coop, but electric fencing deterred the bear before any damage. A large grain spill on the CPR tracks attracted a lot of bears before it was cleaned up, and pet food, compost out in the freezers of bird feeders, even the vegetable garden were raided by bears. Even the local subway attracted a bear. This young fella came in, but fortunately didn't stop for a sandwich. So a large part of our program is education, and this year we gave 25 presentations to school groups, summer camps, new immigrant groups, and frontline tourist staff. We attended several festivals and farmers markets with a display booth, and we ran a fruit tree pruning workshop, as well as presenting at several of the MCE's garden guru workshops. And here are some kids having been to a summer camp. They've just made some fortune tellers, which have bear aware questions and answers on. A great way to engage them and learn. And here's an example of our public display booth at the market. And in a new initiative this summer, we placed these highly visible bear and area signs around the town at sites where bears have been reported. I believe we were almost elected to council. The signs were placed in 152 locations. They were left in place for an average of 3 days, so that people saw them knew that it was a current situation. The signs contained information regarding attractant management, in addition to being a strong reminder that bears were in the area. Feedback suggested that these signs were very effective. And here's a map of town showing where those signs were placed, and you can see it's pretty much a blanket placement. This is an image from our website, which it shows our interactive bear sightings map, and again, pretty corresponding with the placement of the signs. We went door-to-door visiting in 2014, and that was focused mostly on areas where bears have been reported as active. We tried to get to all those areas that have been reported within a couple of days, and we ended up visiting over 450 homes. We also tagged 31 garbage cans that were left out overnight in contravention of our new garbage bylaw. One of our active management strategies is our fruit reduction program. The main thrust of our gleaning project is to harvest excess fruit from the community and donate it to the food bank. Last year we harvested 17 properties and gleaned over 1,700 pounds of fruit. Some of that fruit was donated to the NCS canning project, which preserved the fruit for the food bank. We continue to administer our Adopt a Fruit Tree program, which matches people with the time and energy to adopt a fruit tree with those who don't have time to manage their tree. Our fruit tree mapping project, which started in the spring of 2013, has helped identify fruit trees that have no value as human food sources, but that attract bears due to lack of management. BC Hydro, CP Rail, the city and private owners all removed some trees last year. We had a focus on fruit tree pruning as the most long-term way to manage fruiting trees in Revelstoke. And here, Jake Roos of Local Tree Services explains how to bring a huge cherry tree back into a manageable form. And this is an example of a very well-managed plum tree. No ladder is required for that one, it's only about 6 feet tall. So we have been using Facebook to very good advantage. Last year we had 82 posts through the season and generated 48,500 views. As the WildSafe BC Facebook page has now gone into hibernation, we have our own Revelstoke Waterworks page that will be used from now on, so please become our like our page. 2014, we completely revamped our website and gave it a fresh new look, making it easier to navigate. We have a new resources for children section, and we made sure that it works well with mobile devices, because that's research has shown that that's the most common way of looking at websites these days. We still kept our interactive sightings map, and we ended up with over 8,800 visitors to the site. And there's a little look of our new front page. Our media coverage was excellent last year. We had 11 articles published. We did 9 radio interviews. Revelstoke Cable ran our message through the summer, and we put up posters and brochures around the town in various locations. As usual, a large volunteer contingent helped to make the program a success in 2014. In particular, I'd like to thank Jackie Morris, who almost single-handedly transferred all the content from our own old website to the new. Volunteers also play a huge role in our gleaning project. In this pair of images, a volunteer harvests plums the day after bears were reported in the same tree. We're still working towards becoming a Bear Smart community. Bear Smart is a voluntary provincial initiative to reduce human-bear conflict. Becoming Bear Smart is a 5-part process, and Revelstoke already has parts 1, 2 and 3 completed with our bear hazard assessment, conflict management plan and community planning documents in hand. Part 4 pertains to having a bear-resistant solid waste management plan. We're working towards this, and Bearaware hopes that concrete steps will be made in this direction in the near future. The pilot project in 2009 showed how effective a bear-resistant garbage system could be in reducing human-bear conflict and increasing human safety. Part 5 is to implement Bear Smart bylaws. We're already well down this path with the new garbage bylaw in 2012 and amendments to the ticketing bylaw underway. The chicken bylaw being developed needs to include strong measures to ensure secure storage of chicken feed, cleanliness of chicken feeding areas, and the provision to allow electric fences to protect chicken coops from bears. A wildlife attractant bylaw covering attractants such as fruit trees, pet food, bird feeders, outdoor freezers, and unmanaged compost has been proposed to the previous council but was tabled until the election, and we would like to resubmit that this year. In short, we're very close to becoming bear smart. The steps needed to take from now on are to implement the bear resistant branch system, or at least have a written plan to implement it, to complete the chicken bylaw with bear-aware measures, and to implement a wildlife attractant bylaw. So were there any barriers to our program last year? Well, our conservation officer retired in 2013 and the ministry decided not to replace him, leaving officers from Golden and Vernon to service Revelstoke. This has meant significant time delays from report of an incident until officers arrive on the scene. Also, out-of-town officers are unfamiliar with Revelstoke and with the current situation here, rendering them less efficient in dealing with issues that we had if we had a local officer. So looking ahead to 2015, we would like to continue our education program and active management initiatives. We'd like to continue our wild fruit tree management programs. We'd like to work on a fruit tree replacement program, which would be incentive-based. We'd like to work with the city on a new wildlife attractant bylaw and the chicken bylaw. We'd like to work towards the implementation of a bear-proof solid waste management system. And if all these things are in hand, we'd like to apply for Bear Smart status. And of course, we would like to continue lobbying for the reinstatement of our conservation officer in Revelstoke. So I'd just like to say thank you to the financial contributors to our program in 2014, Cloudy Basin Trust, WildSafe BC, Lush Cosmetics, Revelstoke Community Foundation, BC Hydro, and Revelstoke Credit Union, and of course the City and Parks Canada for their in-kind support. Anyone got any questions?
Questions from council?
Just one comment. When you went on Facebook, that was just great because I know most of the pictures are from my neighborhood, and it was so easy to find you on Facebook.
Facebook's great. It's very, very immediate, which is exciting.
Councillor Orlando.
Garbage system, chicken bylaw, and wildlife attractant bylaw are sort of the three main things that are really within the control of the city. Can you elaborate a little bit more on what your asks are for the specifics of those programs? Especially the wildlife attractant, which I don't have as much detail on. I know the first two a bit better. But, yeah.
So last year we sent a letter to council with a sample wildlife attractant bylaw, and at that time it was tabled. It basically is very simple. It's a simple one-page bylaw taken from other communities where I've pulled together the sorts of things that are most important here. And I'm not sure about the process of putting in a new bylaw, but what I would like to do is start the process of communicating with the city about putting that in place. It's, we have the garbage bylaw which deals with not putting garbage out at the curb and making sure it's securely stored when it's not at the curb. But we need to also think of fruit trees, compost that's unmanaged, all the other things. Pet food is a really big one as well. So if we could make those things part of that bylaw, then at least we would have some options.
Mm-hmm. Is this like finding? Sorry, is this finding people for non-compliance? Is that the idea?
I think that would be the idea in the most extreme case. In a lot of cases, it's really handy just to go say there is a bylaw, and we can educate people that there is a bylaw. There's actually a law that says that they should be putting away and securing these attractants, because a lot of people think, well, I don't really mind having a bear in my garden, but what they don't realise is that if they are attracting bear into their garden, they're attracting the bear into the whole neighbourhood. So it's nice to have some remedy if it goes that far.
I think the easiest thing to do, Councillor Orlando, is ask staff to update council on where we are with these items and what we can be doing to move this initiative forward. I think that you go back to the 94, 95 95-96 period, Revelstoke was one of the first communities in BC to start adopting Bear Smart initiatives. We have bear statues at the entrance to our community in the downtown core. I think it's the least we could be doing is to doing as much as we can to save as many bears as possible. It's the right thing to do, and especially in a community that prides itself on its natural environment and the bears that surround us. So it's coming up with a formula that we can all live happily ever after together. Right, Sue?
That's the way.
Okay. Councillor Duke, did you hear that? No. Councillor Orlando.
Yeah, just one. Thanks for the presentation, Sue. I've seen quite a few of these, but that one graph there that shows before and after, I think that's really effective in my mind because it shows just how effective it's been. So, yeah.
Thanks very much, Sue. Is there any business arising from any of the minutes? Moving into correspondence, we have a timely letter from the Ministry of Environment, Mary Pollock, regarding a conservation officer, and I think it really gets down to one issue is that they don't feel that Revelstoke is making enough calls to the conservation officer to warrant having an officer here. So, and I guess what I put to them was, if there's nobody to call, they're not calling, and people are, we're dealing with our own problems rather than calling a conservation officer that may not be able to arrive in a timely manner. I'm not sure if the council wants to do any more action on this. I have been talking with the provincial government about this and don't plan on stopping. So, Councillor Lund.
Yeah, I feel that if the criteria is how many calls are being made, it's unfortunate because we have been so effective. I can't speak to what other communities are doing, but we have been effective at reducing the interfaces, so therefore we have less calls, so therefore it contributes to us losing the service. And I know the bearware people always say call it in, and it's not just bears, it's dangerous interfaces, it's pollution, it's a whole bunch of other things, and I think the community should be encouraged to use the system and maybe in the future, but I agree with the mayor in that we've asked 3 times, and what are you going to do?
Okay. No action anybody wants to take? Okay. Old business, zoning amendment bylaw number 2060.
I'll recuse myself, I'm just listening to my relationship.
Also recuse myself until item D, due
Okay.
to the vacation with
We'll call you.
Yes.
Councillor Lando.
Yeah, so 8A, that zoning amended bylaw number 2060, being a bylaw to allow for vacation rental use, be adopted. And this is 2077 Mountain Gate Road.
Motion by Councillor Lando, second by Councillor Nixon. Discussion on the motion. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Makes it easier to count when there's only 4 people in the room.
Do you bring cognac?
No.
No?
Item B. Do you want to do this one, Councillor Lando?
Sure. That the public hearing summary for rezoning bylaw number 2064 to add vacation rental use for 1766 Viateki Road be received.
Motion by Councillor Lando, second by Councillor Nixon. Discussion. Councillor Lando.
I think this comes up right after for third reading, so this is just receiving it. Yeah.
That's right.
Okay.
All those in favor of the motion? Motion's carried.
All right, and item 8C, that zoning amendment bylaw number 20, or do you want to do this one?
Yep. Is this 8, this is 8C?
That's
Yes.
right.
That zoning amendment bylaw number 2064, being a bylaw to allow for vacation rental use, received 3rd reading.
Motion by Councillor Brothers, seconded by,
I'll second it for discussion purposes.
Very good. Councillor Brothers, second for discussion. And discussion is on. Councillor Nixon.
Your worship, I really weigh this one as being inappropriate for vacation rental use. I know that staff worked with the young couple that applied for this vacation rental and advised them to let their neighbors know what they were doing and work with their neighbors. They chose not to, and I think the neighbors raised really pertinent concerns, especially around pedestrian use of this cul-de-sac area for children walking to school, and I think I just cannot vote to support this today.
Is there any more discussion on this motion? Councillor Sauls.
I have to agree with Councillor Nixon after reading the letters from the neighbors and the presentation from the owners. I don't feel that they have sufficient space for parking, but also that they are not going with what they said they would do in the neighborhood. So I too will not support this.
Councillor Orlando.
Yeah, I'm going to not support this as well. There was 8 written and 5 verbal submissions. Almost all of them were opposed. They each they had a variety of different reasons. And again, if I hear the neighbors not in support of the applications like the specifics here, I'm not going to support this one. So,
Councillor Brothers.
I wasn't here last week when the presentations occurred, but I read all of the materials, and I do have some serious concerns. I think there's a difficulty here with respect to whether they comply with the requirements of the bylaw, and I think there's some issues with respect to the parking, but I think this is primarily an enforcement issue. And as I put forth before, I'm all for vacation rentals if they're good for the community and good for the location. The concern I have with here is most of the complaints appear to be dealing with an enforcement issue, noise, that type of thing. I don't think at this present time I can support this, given the letters that have been submitted. But as I said, I have some concerns that they have met most of the issues, except maybe with some dispute with respect to parking. You don't want to stop people from applying and being approved if it's an enforcement issue. In other words, something that potentially could happen after the fact. So I think we have to be mindful of that, and we have to figure out, make sure we've got our ducks in a row in terms of enforcement versus is it good for the community. But under the circumstances, I don't think I can.
Before we carry on, I just have a question for Dawn or Graham, and it's a point of order. Can you vote on this when you weren't at the public hearing?
I believe so, yes. I have to double check, but yeah, I believe so.
2 out of 3 are nodding yes, so that's good enough for me. I guess the comment that I have is that I as well will be voting against this. I think that the number one message for vacation rental is it acceptable to the neighborhood? Is it meeting the bylaws? And I'm not as concerned with the other comments, because I think that it would have been highlighted by Mr. Strachan if the parking was not, parking had to be there to go through with the bylaw, first of all. The question is that are they then parking on the road, which we have no control over at the time, and probably yes. But the bottom line is that it ended up being a nuisance for the neighborhood, and vacation rentals have to be respectful of the neighborhood, and for that reason, I am not going to be voting in favor of this motion as well. I think Councillor Orlando had his hand up. No?
I guess, no, I've got questions that can be left to a future one.
I have one question. If they remedy the situation in terms of the nuisance and the alleged nuisance, can they come back and reapply? Is that a possibility, or is it a done deal?
Yeah, Mr. Strachan.
Your Worship, if the bylaw is defeated, they have to wait 6 months to reapply for their application.
But there is a possibility.
Unless they revise their application and modify it.
And the only thing I can say is that I think we're going to run into a bit of this difficulty because, I mean, I think there are people who have been operating as vacation rentals for a period of time, and there are some issues. So we're going to have to deal with this issue. And I'd like to make sure that as a city we get our ducks in a row in terms of enforcement, because I think that's going to be a very, very big issue with respect to vacation rentals.
Any other questions? The question is, zoning amendment bylaw 2064 to allow for vacation rental use. All those in favor? All those against? Motion is defeated. Thank you. Councillor Duke can enter the room now. No?
Yes,
I should tell that we are going to be allowing him back in, but you didn't know him back there. We're on item 8D. If anybody would like to take that on?
I'll do that one. Revelstoke Secondary School Transit Bus Passes, that the City Council approves the request to provide 20 monthly bus passes to RSS to be issued to vulnerable students to enable them to access community services and opportunities.
Motion by Councillor Saul, seconded by Councillor Duke. Discussion. Does this go through Question Graham? Does this go through Grant and A? And how does this? How do we account for this?
Your worship, I believe this will just come out of council contingency. So transit revenue will be credited with $750 and contingency, council contingency will be debited with $750.
So council contingency, we're in a deficit already at our first motion?
I don't think so, your worship.
Councillor Nixon.
just, I wonder if a friendly amendment could be a maximum of 20 tickets, bus passes, just so it doesn't become a growing.
Well, the motion does say 20.
Okay.
So I don't see how it can increase from that without having another motion coming to the floor, right? And I'm getting a couple of yeses. Councillor Brothers.
Can I just ask whether or not this is an annual thing, or are we doing this just for this year? Or?
I would say that this is just for this year, and we'll see how it goes and monitor it, and I would think that a request would have to come back again. Is there any more discussion on the motion? Are you okay with that answer, Councillor Nixon?
Mm-hmm.
Good. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. New business, notification of agreement, emergency social services. Councillor Sells?
Notification of agreement, emergency social services. Do you want me to read that?
Sorry, I have to accuse myself on this. Oh, no, it's just a notification, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
I just
read it here.
Yeah, sure. So this is 9A, that the report submitted by the Corporate Services Executive dated February 2nd, 2015, be received for information, and this is notification of agreement on emergency social services.
Motion by Councillor Orlando, seconded by Councillor Nixon. Discussion on the motion. All those in favor? Against? Motion's carried. Item B.
I can do it. Heritage Designation Bylaw number 2057, 616 3rd Street West. The Heritage Designation Bylaw number 2057 be a bylaw to designate a protected heritage property, receive first and second readings, and the public hearing be held at 2:30 p.m. Tuesday, March 10, 2015 in council chambers.
Motion by Councillor Duke, seconded by Councillor Sauls. Discussion on the motion. This has to do with Mountain View School. Councillor Orlando.
Yeah, just from the committee, this is Mountain View School. This has been around since the past council. The school district is voluntarily bringing this under heritage rules, and this is a big benefit to council because they're waiving their right to compensation for this, and the discussion of the committee was this is a good thing. It preserves our heritage, and it's fiscally good for us, and that'll sort of be the end of the discussion.
Any more discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Motion's carried. Anybody against? Motion's carried. Item C.
C, that business licensing and regulation, or amendment bylaw number 2035, being a bylaw to provide for the licensing and regulation of businesses, receive first, second, and third readings.
Motion by Councillor Lando, seconded by Councillor Sells. Discussion on the motion. Councillor Brothers.
Can I just raise some questions about how we arrived at the vacation rental being $200, the fee being $200 plus $50 per licensed bedroom? And here's my concern. You know, we have to make sure that we cover the cost, in particular of enforcement. I know I've already raised the issue of enforcement, and I'm a little concerned that $200 plus $5, is it 50 or $5? Per licensed bedroom won't cut it. And I'm really concerned that we want to make sure vacation rentals works, and that we are able to pay for the enforcement of the vacation rental, and that's going to be a big issue. And I'm just concerned about the fee and how we arrived at that fee structure.
Do you have any comments, Mr. Strachan?
Sure, Your Worship. The fee was reviewed in context of a number of other communities that have wrestled with this issue. It ranges from $100 to upwards of $1,200. We tried to arrive at a fee that seemed to be appropriate for the level of bylaw enforcement we have currently active on vacation rental issues, and made a commitment last July to return to council this July with the results of how many bylaw enforcement complaints we received, what the cost of that, managing that enforcement was, and how much we collect in fees and whether that's reflective of our costs. So that was our commitment, is we needed to establish a dollar figure. It was established $200 plus $5 per licensed bedroom, with a commitment to also come back and see if that's appropriate after 1 year, because there is no, up until very recently, the last council meeting actually, there was no legal vacation rentals in Revelstoke yet. So there wasn't any in to sort of evaluate what the complaint level and what the enforcement level is going to be.
And I think we also have to keep in mind what we're trying to do is we're trying to encourage people to come forward, license the vacation rental, and so that one, the people that are signing up and coming and staying here know that there is some regulation and some process that they have to go through, so that they know that they're in an approved accommodation. So I would rather we were on the shy side and encouraging people to come forward than giving them another reason not to come forward. Councilor Brothers.
And the flip side of that, the concern that I have is that we're setting the bar really low for the cost of it, and if all of a sudden we realize, oh geez, it's costing us a lot more money, then we're going to raise the fees, and we're going to have a whole bunch of people saying, well, how can we double or triple the fees or do whatever. That's my only concern. I you know, just looking at it from a point of view of the third party, I mean, it just looks low to me. So
It's the conundrum that City Hall has all the time that we have to deal with, and we're lucky that we have you at the table to help us get through it. If you're not on the Grizzlies bus at 2. Is there any more discussion on the motion? Councilor Lando.
Through the chair, Your Worship, a question to staff about what is the estimated cost for enforcement of these? Is this a cost recovery model, or does this have any revenue built in for the city?
Mr. Strachan?
Your Worship, this fee has to be a cost recovery for service. So we cannot create a profit from this and use it for other things. So this needs to be for the service that it's covered, which is business licensing, associated with its complaints. Because we don't have, until very recently, any vacation rentals that are fully approved, there is no model to tell us how much it's going to cost. So this is just brought in as a fee to establish a level benchmark that we can use after 1 year, evaluate how many complaints have been received, and all of those complaints are going through my office personally, to be able to track where we're at, how many complaints we're receiving, what time it takes to deal with them. So when we report back in July, we can say this is how many legal vacation rentals we had, this is what it's resulted in for cost to the city for bylaw enforcement, and how does that reflect with our fees and charges we have in place. And without that time period of actually having regulated vacation rentals, it's difficult to model what those costs will be. Unfortunately, what we're dealing with is a longer history of unregulated vacation rentals and the bylaw enforcement associated with those. If you use those as a measure of cost for what it's going to be under a regulated program, somewhat, it's hard to justify.
Thank you. Any more comments? Motion is on the business license and regulation amendment bylaw, first, second, and third reading. All those in favor? Anybody against? Motion's carried.
9D, Social Development Committee recommendation. City Council explore the use of the Century Dowling Building as a facility for the development of a community food security resource center.
Motion by Councillor Saul, seconded by Councillor Nixon.
Can I just raise an issue here that was, I am on the board of Community Connections, but this is just for notification purposes, so I assume that I do not have to recuse myself on this.
I don't think that you have to recuse yourself on this. Discussion on the motion. Councillor Nixon.
This is something that I've heard about before from Community Connections, and I know that this will go to staff meeting and get worked out as to where all the things that are in Century Dowling building are now would be stored. And I know that storage is a big issue that people keep coming forward to the city to ask us to do. But I'm glad to see this coming forward because I've seen it being talked about for a while now.
And with this going back to staff, I've been under the impression over the years that there are some issues with that building structurally or roof or something, and I would like to make sure that that's included in this report that comes back. It's interesting that the Century Dowling building is getting so much attention as of late. Councillor Lando.
Yeah, I'm supportive of this concept. I know, as is outlined in the report, Community Connections has indicated they can get some tenant improvement capital funding to work on the building, and there's also potential for some revenue and rent from the building. I don't know what's going to be done with the storage space. I don't know if there's options there. I'd like to see what staff can come up with, if we can see some numbers, and also see if there's any other options for them. I think for myself, the food bank is of course a great, in my opinion, a good use for this, but there's also other ideas they're talking about at Community Connections for food security, and maybe if we put this to staff to look a little more into it, we'll have a better idea of what they're talking about, and also it can mesh with our, we put another motion before at the past meeting to look at another request and for uses, so maybe we could somehow get the staff to be doing those two processes at once.
Any more discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Motion's carried. Social development, where are we? Transit service.
That City Council received this report as information, and that's the transit service report dated January 20th, 2015.
Motion by Councillor Brothers, seconded by Councillor Sauls. Discussion on the motion. Councillor Nixon.
Just ask staff if the contractor is collecting better stats to show the increase in ridership in 2014. It just seems like quite a jump. And I know there was a problem with the contractor not collecting proper stats before.
So the stats are all provided to us by BC Transit, and BC Transit depends on the local operator to collect the numbers. So our assumption is that those numbers are being collected correctly.
Councillor Brothers.
Just one question, Mr. Mason. I note here, and this is the number that jumps up at everybody, I think, that the cost per trip is $21.25. And I recognize, you know, who pays what and what proportion the city pays. But has any other community ever thought about a different way of doing public transit? I mean, it seems to me that for $21.25 per trip, I mean, we could almost just get a cab. You could call a cab and make the trip. Has anybody ever looked at that before?
Yeah, so other communities do deliver the transit service in different ways, and I believe Kimberley has a service where basically it's a phone. You just pick up the phone and a bus comes and picks people up. The cost though per ride, if you look at the comparative chart there that I know is hard to read with other communities, you know, we ended up in the middle of the pack. So we've asked BC Transit to come forward with some suggestions, and they haven't been particularly creative in what they do. There's a number of things with it. I mean, any BC Transit service has to be accessible. So already you've increased your costs because you have to have vehicles that are accessible. So you can't just call cabs to pick up people because the wheelchairs can't get into cabs. So the BC Transit have indicated they would come and meet with staff, meet with council if council wanted to explore other models of delivery.
Okay, I think that's a good idea. Councillor Lando.
Through the chair, Alan, Mr. Mason, in the past year, Handy Dart rides are up by about 1,000. What prompted that big increase?
So in about a year ago, we were hearing from BC Transit the concern that the ridership on the Handy Dart service was actually tailing off, and that's quite an expensive part of the service. We met with stakeholders on 2 occasions, BC Transit, and modified the service. When the service was first established, it primarily serviced the people going to the day program at Moberly Manor, and there were not as many people going to the day program. So we revised the service to make it more available for the public, and it looks like that was successful. So now more of the public have been able to access the service. It's a call-in service. You call up and you order it, so it looks like more people have taken advantage of that.
Any more discussion on the motion? Councillor Lando.
It seems to me that, like Mr. Mason was just talking about, the tweaks to the system have big impacts and lead to positive changes. One of the things that I talked about prior to the election was exploring other options here. I don't know if council is prepared. I haven't had a lot of chance to talk with anyone about this, but a task force is another way of saying a temporary committee. If there's any appetite to see if there's people interested in looking at other options that could drive ridership, that could drive revenue. I have the feeling that there are things out there, but how we get to them or whether that's the fight we want to fight right now, and we have so many other things on the table, is another question. But I guess for myself, I'd like to leave it open for discussion to maybe explore other options that we have, because I see 1,000 more riders. That's good news. There are other things we can be doing. So.
You have 45 and a half months left.
Yeah.
I think it's good. I think it's an area that we will be looking at. It's just a matter of getting a few other things behind us first. So, discussion on the motion. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you.
9F, Revelstoke Food Security Strategy. The City Council received this report as information.
Motion by Councillor Saul, second by Councillor Nixon. Discussion. Councillor Nixon.
This is a very good report, and a lot of work went into this, and it ties in with the food bank as well. And I think it would be really good for council to have Haley Ross and Fraser Blythe come and do a short presentation to council about this. And this is one of the very high priorities that were set in the Integrated Community Sustainability Plan. So this is one that's moved along quite easily.
I see Dawn is taking notes as we speak. Any more discussion on this motion? Councilor Lando.
Yeah, it's a good report. You can sit down with a whole bowl of organic apples and read it. It's over 100 pages, but yeah, I saw this a couple months ago. I know there's been some changes, but a great idea to have them here to present and sort of look at next steps, because there's a whole matrix at the end for suggestions, and maybe we can hear from them directly what sort of things they want from us and what sits with other organizations and how this fits into the community.
And you can get those apples gleaned from a tree that don't take away from some bear that's going to start coming in the neighborhood. Any more discussion on this motion? All those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. You have to introduce the motion.
Here we go. The staff be directed to proceed with the following amendment to zoning bylaw number 1264. Add CD 16 Comprehensive Development Zone 16. Add the following definition for recreational commercial accommodation use. Recreational commercial accommodation means an accessory use for motorsport-oriented recreation visitors seeking accommodation in conjunction with indoor and outdoor storage for vehicles and equipment, shops, and other light industrial-oriented uses. Maximum occupancy per licensed bedroom is 2. Maximum number of permitted licensed bedrooms shall be no more than 3. Total maximum unit occupancy will be 6. Units must be accessory to and in conjunction with the primary industrial and or commercial use. Maximum occupancy shall be 120 days per calendar year per individual. The property owner is to provide a contact number for themselves or a representative to provide located within the city limits and available 24 hours a day. The contact number is to appear on the business license posted in the recreational commercial accommodation unit. Add parking requirements for recreational commercial accommodation in section 12.4, required off-street parking. The parking requirement will be 1 parking space per licensed bedroom. And that the application to rezone strata plan EPS 452 phase 1 in a portion of REM lot A, plan EPP 10805 phase 2 from M1 light industrial district to CD 16 comprehensive development zone be approved subject to the following. The owner is to cease all non-conforming uses of REM Lot A Plan EP 18805 and remove all associated materials and equipment from the site. And the owner is to register a covenant design strata lot 10 as the location of the 1 permitted caretaker resident. And that the proposed amendment to the zoning bylaw 1264 are referred to the Advisory Planning Commission for the review and comment.
Motion by Councillor Duke, seconded by Councillor Sauls. Longest motion ever at the City of Revelstoke. I wasn't really listening. Would you mind repeating that? Mr. Strachan, you can give us a run through on what this is all about?
Thank you, Your Worship. As noted, it's a amendment to the zoning bylaw to add a CD zone. So comprehensive development zoning district is a zone that's designed for a specific property or a group of properties. This particular one is associated with this parcel. It's a modification of the M1, which is our light industrial zoning district, to remove some of the uses that are inappropriate for in conjunction with where people are staying, and to include this new use to allow for accommodation oriented towards recreational users that are needing garage and large spaces where they can work on vehicles and their machines and have them secured within the same building as they are occupied. So the CD zone was developed by staff to reflect the M1 zoning district with some modifications as well as some modernization of the bylaw, which falls in line with our rewrite of the zoning bylaw. So although the format is the same as the current zoning bylaw, it's been designed in a way so it can pull into the new zoning bylaw without modification to regulation and fit with the new format. The property itself is including 2 buildings at this point in time. Building 1 is already constructed. The second building is under construction now. Both of these buildings would have this option. The individual strata lot property owner would have to apply for a building permit to change the storage unit to a storage unit with a accommodation unit above, which would be in the, where it's currently a mezzanine now, would become actually like a suite. They aren't, these The building permit that has been issued for the property is for storage units only at this time, but they would be able to apply for building permits to modify the units to construct the residential unit above. Sorry, excuse me, accommodation unit above. Reference is made to Strata Lot 10. There's one permitted residential unit, which is a fully residential unit, caretaker's unit. That unit is located in Strata Lot 10, which is at the top of the property, and currently over a mechanic shop that's located at the far end of the building. Subsequent phases include phases 3 and 4. What you see here is showing on these, this drawing as being these two buildings that are future phases. They are not proposed to be a part of this rezoning application for the purpose of seeing how this really works on this property. Prior to council being recommended to provide approval for an additional 20 units, which would be the subsequent phases. So if this particular application is successful and does sell out and results in a positive impact in the community, council will be asked in the future to consider also rezoning these two buildings into the CD zone to allow for similar development. The reverse being true, if there's any issues associated with it, there is no obligation for council to allow these two buildings to develop in that format in the future. One of the conditions is that the site be brought into current compliance with the zoning bylaw. On the site where the future additions are to take place, there's currently a mill, which is a legal use in that zoning district. And it's been recommended to council that the property be brought fully in compliance with the city zoning bylaw prior to this bylaw being adopted after the public hearing. Thank you, Worship.
And agreed to by the proponent.
Yes, Worship.
Questions from council? Councilor Nixon.
Just for clarification, there is not a second caretaker suite going in the second building, right? It's one per property?
One for the Strata, yes, Your Worship.
For the whole
That's correct.
property, if it moves to 4 buildings, there will be one caretaker suite?
Well, caretaker suite is a fully residential unit, which has no limitations on occupancy. There will only be one on the property, which would be the one that's been identified and has been recommended that council include as a covenant so that any property owner who purchases will have that appear on their title, but that one particular unit is for residential occupancy only. There is the option in the future, strata owners, like the strata itself, could move that unit to another location within the strata. So, for example, one property owner no longer wanted it to be a residential unit and wanted to apply for a building permit to remove it and make it an industrial mezzanine. A different strata unit could have that use attached to it, but only one of the strata units can have that be a full-time residential occupancy.
And the other accommodation units are 120 days per individual staying in them?
If they apply for that, it's not all automatic.
No, if they apply for a building permit and get a business license for that purpose, they'd be limited to that time duration.
Councilor Brothers.
Just a question in terms of taxation. Will they be taxed commercially, or will they be taxed as a combo, or how's that going to work?
Interesting question. PC assessment will assess them based on the use. Each one of the strata units is not required to have an accommodation unit in it. It has an allowance for it in the zone. So if they choose to apply for a building permit to modify it to actually make it an accommodation unit, likely BC assessment would change their assessment to reflect that change on the property. However, we have no control over whether that would take place or not.
The Director of Finance would like to jump in.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just to go on what Mr. Strachan said here, what's possible is that there is a combination of commercial use underneath, perhaps an accommodation above. BCA might do a split assessment, so they might value some of it as class 1, which is residential, and the rest of it is class 6, which would be commercial.
But the owner of each unit, they could have residential storage and residential vacation rental up top. So not running a business out of there if they so choose.
In which case it may well just be all residential class.
Okay. Question, Councillor Sauls.
Your Worship, just for clarification, so when these units are being built by the proponent, will they automatically be built with the storage mezzanine, or will that be switched over? If we give approval to the zoning, will that be switched over where the residents will automatically be built in there?
The proponent is here, he didn't answer that question.
Yes, I'm Ross Lang. Here, the units are actually just square boxes of air.
Right.
There is no mezzanine affixed to any of these units.
Okay.
It's to the purchaser that would either build a mezzanine for storage or go with this secondary suite type thing and apply accordingly. Okay?
So you're applying for this zoning to allow them, if they want to do that, they can do that?
Absolutely correct.
Correct, good,
Yeah.
thank you, appreciate that.
Anything you want to add to that, Mr. Strachan?
Nothing, Your Worship.
Okay. Councillor Orlando.
Just a question about the process. This is next headed to the APC for review and comment, and then if you could just fill me in on the next steps.
Your Worship, if council allows this to go forward, a bylaw would be brought forward to the next council meeting requesting that a first and second reading and scheduling of a public hearing. Sometime between now and when that public hearing takes place, the Advisory Planning Commission will be provided a copy of the report for their review and consideration, and that resolution will come back to council in advance of that public hearing.
And then when the property is brought into compliance, then it would go to third reading.
Your Worship, it will actually proceed to the public hearing. The public hearing will take place. Council will it won't be brought forward to council for consideration of third reading until the conditions that have been listed have been satisfied, which includes the bringing the property into compliance. So it would go to first and second reading, public hearing, and then it stays either we can take it up to third reading, or we can hold it after third reading and not have it adopted until such time as
Mr. Lang?
Hello, Ross Lang again here. As it stands right now, you mentioned a word there, the illegal use of our property. We've been at that location for several years doing exactly what we've been doing. So I'm not exactly terming it that we aren't zoned accordingly to run our shake block operation. It's not a sawmill. It is a light manufacturing that we do. So I'm not splitting hairs over that. But for me to move my operation, I pretty much want to know 100% that we're going to basically be 100% on these other buildings, or else, you know, and I'm not blackmailing or doing any kind of wording like that, but I just want to work together and just make sure that it's a great expense for me to have to move my operation out west.
And I guess just to, and Mr. Strack will fill in the blanks, but when council goes to the public for a public hearing, council decision-making is unfettered and they have not made a decision one way or the other until it listens to the public. And just like the vacation rental that we were dealing with earlier, we listen to the public, we listen to their comments, and that has to be taken into consideration in any type of rezoning.
Absolutely.
So that's when, I'm assuming that you would be coming to the public hearing, you would then be getting a good idea of how the neighborhood feels about your development and how it fits in, and you'll have as much information as, or more information than council has, or as much information, and you're going to have to decide from there. But
yeah,
the bottom line is that you won't get final reading until the property, and I won't say illegal, I'll say non-conforming, is brought into compliance.
Yes. You explained that very well, thank you.
Is there anything you should add to that, Mr. Strachan?
No, Your Worship, the consideration of third readings could certainly take place. The final adoption of the bylaw being held until such time as the property is brought into compliance.
Okay. But again, going to third reading is after the public hearing.
That's correct.
And that would give an indication of council's support right there.
It would be council passing an additional reading following the public hearing.
Right. And then the final adoption would be after that. Okay.
Just for clarification, council still has the ability to not give final readings of adoption of the bylaw and could rescind. They, as you mentioned, have the unfettered ability to vote on those regulations.
Good point, which is what happened earlier today. Correct. Discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Against? Motion's carried. Item H.
The request to waive the development variance permit application fee of $600 be considered, and that the request to waive the development permit minor application fee of $150 be considered.
Motion by Councillor Duke, seconded by Councillor Sauls. Discussion. Are we doing something on this too? No. Any discussion? We are?
Yeah, he's got something. Yeah.
You got pictures of the garbage cans?
Very briefly, Your Worship. As noted, it's a request to waive the fees so that the variance can be brought forward for consideration. So this is not the variance coming forward to council for their consideration at this point in time. It's just to request that the fees be waived. So you'll note that the garbage enclosure has been constructed in front of the building, and unfortunately that does not fit with the siting requirements of the zoning bylaw. So they're applying for a development variance permit and are seeking council's consideration of waiving the $750 in fees required for this enclosure to be sanctioned by the city. It has already been constructed. It was constructed earlier this fall. Thank you, Your Worship.
I guess just a question, Mr. Stride. It seems to me that it still seems to be in an appropriate place, and they've obviously done, I think, done an excellent job of building the structure. But it seems to make sense on where it's located.
Your Worship, as noted, the development variance permit will come forward independent of this report. But as noted, it is a substantive structure, well constructed, and fits with the form and character of the building. So it matches the building well. It looks good.
Thank you. Discussion on the motion? Councillor Nixon.
Just, Your Worship, it should be noted that the group, the Revelstoke Senior Citizens Housing Society, hired a contractor who should know to come in and work with the city staff before he goes and builds something. This shouldn't be on the Revelstoke Senior Housing Society. The contractor should be responsible. He carries the permits.
Now, it's still the owner of the building's responsibility to get out the permits. Am I wrong? Who's responsible to take out permits?
Your Worship, normally the contractor is assigned by the property owner the authority to make those applications.
You see this both right.
So they can't have it. So they did, in this case, give the authority to the contractor. Normally the contractor is hired for not only their construction expertise, but their process expertise, and would navigate the process for them. And that's normally what the intent of hiring someone to do would take place. Unfortunately, in this case, there was some items missed.
Okay. Discussion on the motion. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Last item is a housekeeping item with the appointment of directors to the Forest Corporation. I need a motion. Councillor Brothers, seconded by Councillor Sauls.
With respect,
Did I miss something?
Your Worship, Graham has just noted that there is actually a requirement for council to pass a resolution to waive the fee.
Your Worship, this resolution is just for council to consider. There isn't actually a resolution that's been passed yet that's actually authorising staff to waiving the actual waiving of these fees.
So the be considered should be taken off the motion.
Be approved. It should change to be approved. You could just do a friendly amendment.
Is that all right with the mover and the seconder? It was you, Councillor Sauls? So the motion is to waive the permit fees. Period.
Correct.
Okay, we'll re-vote on that. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. We have a motion on the floor from Councillor Brothers and Councillor Sauls, and it says to housekeeping item with the Forest Corporation Directorship. Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Moving into communications, first item is the check requisition report. Any comments or questions? RCMP community policing report. Business license summary. Council calendar of events.
Your worship, just on the council calendar of events, just to reassure the rest of council that the budget has not been forgotten and is well prepped by staff, was ready for the first draft for staff review October 2014, and the goal for the focus group will be brought back from the public in the fall of 2015. We haven't forgotten about them either. And the focus group for this budget will be the focus group that ran on an economic platform of the current community councillors. So the work will get done, and we haven't forgotten about it.
Thank you for bringing that up. And if our Director of Finance hadn't been so sick, we could have all gone to his house when he was in bed and gone have budget meetings, but I don't think you would have been up for that, wouldn't you? If we all came to your place when you were not feeling well?
Oh, you didn't call, Your Worship, so.
No. I did, your wife wouldn't let me talk to you. Item E is the Social Development Committee minutes. Youth Advisory Committee minutes. Public Works Committee minutes. Parks, Recreation and Culture minutes. And last item is the Revelstoke Board of Education and Superintendent's Annual Report. Councillor O'Malley.
Yeah, on this report, just that it's a good report. It's a 10-pager. It's accessible, and it's a good one to sort of learn a little bit about the school district's philosophy and the direction they're taking. So it's well worth the time. Great report from Superintendent Hooker.
Thank you. Questions from the media?
Thank you, Your Worship. I have one question that's with regards to the financial focus group. Who is on that group?
That's still to be determined. As per every other committee, we will advertise. People will put their names and resumes forward and their desire to be on the committee, and council will deliberate and pick who will be on that committee. It's a brand new committee that's being restarted.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship.
Alex?
Yeah, I was wondering if you could elaborate a bit more on the decision to remove David Raven from the RCFC board, given his, I mean, he does have a lot of experience in forestry, so I'm just wondering if you could explain that.
Well, it's a council appointee, and with the Local Government Act, we have to have more than 50% of the representation has to be from City Council. So David is no longer on City Council, and that's who is being appointed, and we've already appointed council reps on there.
Is there no room to keep him on board as a public rep, or is that...
It's a lot different process than just saying, let's just like any other committee, because there's city financing involved, but it's a lot longer process to change that than to just make a resolution at the council table. A lot longer. It takes a lot longer time. Okay. Emily, any questions?
No, thank you.
Okay. Looking for a motion to go in camera pursuant to section 90.1 C, E, and J of the Community Charter. Councilor Sauls and Orlando.